Hello, my name is Rebecca Sharp, and I'm against the legalization of prostitution. My opponent would have you believe that the legalization of prostitution creates for a safer exchange for the prostitute and and clientele, mainly because the prostitute will not be able to be arrested or fined for participating in the act. However, while yes, that is safer for them, that is better for them, it also definitely doesn't have its benefits as well. So when looking at prostitution is the buying and selling of sex. So if you were legalizing that, you were legalizing pretty much sex trafficking, sex trade, sex slavery, and I don't necessarily see how that is safer for these prostitutes. So while although you're not allowing or having it to where these girls are being fined or arrested, you are allowing them to continue to be stuck in this ring that they can't get out of. A lot of these girls feel very entrapped by the situation. A lot of it is because there is a staggering amount of violence that goes on, and not all the girls are willing to come forward and say, hey, and with what I'm doing, I am being beaten with baseball bats or left in the freezing cold. But there are some who do come out and say, hey, after the fact, after they've been removed, come out and say, hey, this is what happened to me, this is my story. 56% of the prostitutes that were interviewed in 2001 came forward to say and reported that they were beaten. In San Francisco recently, there was a study done where 62% of them were physically assaulted to a degree, and these were the ones that really came forward to tell their story about being beaten, being left in the cold, and other physical things that were done to them. But pretty much all of them would agree in the situation where they were raped. Almost every prostitute that is forced in the sex trade is raped. They don't want to be there. So when legalizing prostitution, you are legalizing the selling and purchasing of rape of young girls, young boys, and women who have no way out. Despite the extreme amount of violence that these girls face, they are also what is considered high-risk victims. Now, high risk is due to the fact that a lot of people don't know where they are, their loved ones. The pimps don't really care. They'll just go and get someone new. The clientele don't really care because they either did it to them or just they can find a new girl. So they're high-risk victims for homicide and murder. Now, in Colorado, there was a statistic done where the most deadliest job for a male is to be a taxi driver in Colorado. Prostitution amongst women is seven times more deadlier and at a higher rate for murder than a male for being a taxi driver. Prostitution is the highest and most dangerous job that a woman can do in Colorado. Taxi driver, and their death rates are the highest one. The statistics, the numbers in that are staggering. If they're not going to be missed, and a lot of people don't even view them as equals. That is why they don't get treated like any other normal human being. And we just pass them by. We think, oh, they're disgusting, but what if they don't want to be there? What if they're stuck? And they are. I mean, they're entrapped by the fear that has been instilled with them. They don't think they can get away out. Through all the beatings, through all the rape, through everything, it has broken them mentally. Not to mention the extreme amount of substance abuse that these women and children go through. It fogs them. It keeps them in a stance where they don't have the mental capacity that they would, or maybe the willpower to leave a situation. So along the prostitution and sex trafficking and sex trade, it all kind of gets fuzzy. So there was a story of a Nevada girl who was mentally impaired to a degree, and her boyfriend's father sold her into sex trafficking, and she was stuck there for years and years and years. And so that is a situation where it's not necessarily where they were taken from the homes, they were sold. A lot of these girls were. There's another story where a girl named Cash, she had been it since she was 13 years old. She was now in her early 20s, and that name was tattooed on her face because it was pretty much stating who her pimp was. She didn't want to be in it. She felt nasty and disgusting. But once again, the extreme amount of violence that she experienced, she felt stuck. She didn't think she could get a way out. She was terrified of what would happen to her if she talked to the cops, because pimps have a way of finding things out, and the clientele can hurt her as well. And one of the things that goes into it is when you legalize prostitution, the pimping becomes ridiculous. Anybody pimps. That just like the boyfriend's father did in a way. He sold a girl into it. He pimped her out pretty much to another pimp. And anybody does it at that point. Anybody who thinks they can, or they start doing this, get into a sex trafficking ring where it's the boyfriends, it's the husbands, it's the brothers, uncles, where they take a young child or a woman, and take him to houses, but they do a thing where they break them in. So they rape them. They take one of their buddies and they do it together, and then next thing you know, they have another buddy come and do it, and then you break them in, and you break their spirits, and then you take them to all these clientels, and they can get anywhere between just a couple clients a day to upwards of a dozen. It kind of just depends on if it's a busy or slow day, weekend, weekday, and it's not fair. So when you go to legalize prostitution, a factor of that goes into my opponent would want you to believe that it is to be recognized as a real job, but there is a stigma behind it where people won't recognize it as a real job. Every other day-to-day people, they see it as something that is filthy and dirty and corrupt, and just a whole cycle of substance abuse. They won't do anything to help a girl or anyone get out of it. So legalizing won't make it be considered a real job. Besides the fact, when you legalize it, and you want it to be a real job, and you want others to view it as that way, well, these sex workers have no benefits. They no health care, no nothing. So all of the diseases, the abuse, the rape, all of that goes untouched. These girls are stuck in a constant state of pain. If they were to get a broken rib, those take months to heal, and there's nothing they can do. They're just in constant agony, and their mental health deteriorates, so then they get stuck. However, I don't want you to believe that all of these sex workers and prostitutes are there against it. Well, there are some who are there willingly, who have put themselves in a position to sell themselves to men. And that is the ones that are the addicts, the ones who live in a high, or live in a buzz that they don't want to come down from, and it's created a situation where it's hard for them to get a job. And then you have the moms that are out there for a second job. And in that instance, I could see where the legalization of prostitution would benefit them. They wouldn't have extra fines. They wouldn't go to jail and leave their kids. Granted, they probably shouldn't have their kids in that situation, but I guarantee the mother's love is undying, and that is why she is out there. The solution to prostitution in general, in my opinion, and through statistics and other organizations that are out there fighting it, is to keep it illegal. And I know that might suck in some instances. So go ahead and make it legal for girls to be out there and soliciting themselves. But the purchasing of sex, that aspect of it, and the selling of sex is where the pimps and the buyers and consumers, where they're the ones that get the brunt end of the deal, where those are the ones going to jail for the crimes that are being committed. And then be an active voice in the community and reaching out and trying to put a stop to it all. Along with, there was one girl who is, her name is Tangelina Miles, and she was born premature to addicts. She was pimped at 18. She had 23 different placements. She fell in love with a man named Darian. They moved to New York, and that is kind of where everything unfolded for her. So while she was 18, that is when they broke her in, and she saw 6 to 13 clients a day. She saw none of that money. She overdosed twice, and she came out. And now she is a strong advocate for being the voice and getting these girls into therapy and rehab for their addiction and getting them out of the situations. Just imagine a world where you didn't have to look over your shoulder of the man that you feel like has been there for 5 minutes when he's just got there behind you. And anything that you consider to be a suspicious activity where you don't have to memorize every detail about them or their license plate, and you can go out with your kids to the park, to the grocery store, and feel safe. That is the goal, and to make it feel the mothers where they have another option than going out there and selling themselves. So I vocalize to you to take action and help the mothers out. Give them odd jobs, whether that's cleaning the house or for you mowing your lawn. And I know that seems weird. There's all kinds of odd jobs that you can do, or just even giving them money until they can get on their feet enough to pay you back, or don't even allow them to pay you back. Just help them out to keep them on the straight and narrow and to keep their family together. There are all kinds of things you can do, but legalizing prostitution, the buying and selling of sex, is not the answer in this case. There are so many other options that we can do to protect our women and children than to make it okay and put them at higher risk for sex trafficking.